pipe, the prop, disconnect all the electrical connections, go into the gearbox, and then remove a few bolts. One thing to note before you remove the prop, make a mark aligning it, as these are balanced to the diff. The factory markings are a yellow mark here and one here, but one way I'm going to remember to do it is when I've removed the prop bolt, I will place a prop bolt in line with the yellow bolt. Next job I've just done is disconnected the loom. The plugs you want to disconnect, you've got to disconnect one from here, which is for the starter motor. These two O2 sensors, then the cable will run around here, disconnect it from the metal bracket or remove the metal bracket. One from here. You've then got two sensors on the driver's side. You have a further two, one here and then one right up the top. If you are struggling with the top one, what you can do is when we remove it, you can leave that one connected till the end gearbox is slightly dropped off. Be very careful not to snap the cable. Next we're going to remove the gear shifter. We've just disconnected the linkage down below. It's as simple as hold the shaft and rotate, then remove the spacer, pop that off. To get this out, you simply pop up on the button, pull back. There is a cable to disconnect here. Then disconnect the two cables, two clips running down the side. Push the cable out of the way, remove the boots. Remove this boot, give it a little wiggle, and that is your gear shifter removed. Okay, now we're ready to move the gearbox. The first job we'll do is remove these two bolts and move the starter clear of the gearbox. There's four going forward facing aft. Next we're going to remove the 8 17mm bolts that run from about midway up all around the bell housing on the gearbox. Okay, now you've removed the top 8 bolts, you'll notice the top one had a breather pipe on it, and pull that breather down to the side just so it's out of the way. And support the gearbox. As we're using a ramp, we've got a proper gearbox cradle. If you're doing this on axle stands or on low level jacks, put a trolley jack in place. You start to slowly remove the gearbox. To remove the CSC, you remove 10mm bolt down the bottom, 10mm bolt at the top, release the spring clip, pull the pipe out, remove the CSC. Then as we're fitting the TORQEN CSC, remove one bolt from the bracket, the second one to remove the bracket, pull the pipes out of the way. I fit the new CSC, one bolt at the top, making sure the pipework is at the top. Next, connect up the pipework so it looks like such. Alright, now we're going to remove the clutch plate to have a look and see what the clutch is looking like. It is simply removing H6 bolts all the way around. Okay, now the clutch plate's removed, you can see the flywheel. Roughly to gauge how much life you've got left, you look at the rivets and measure the gap. To remove the flywheel, remove these 8 bolts. What we'll do is just repress it full of grease. And once that's filled with a decent amount of grease, insert the socket again, trying to keep as much grease as we can in there. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of pressure when I'm doing that, and bang, bearing removed.
So we removed the pilot bearing. As you can see, it's damaged.
Now we're fitting the bolts back in. Upon inspection of the bolts, these actually have the ARP uprated flywheel bolts.
Like that.
Put the pressure plate on, line it up with the 3 dowel holes. It'll only go one way. If dowel holes aren't lined up, try rotating it. So now we've got the front bolts connected. Before we connect the rear up, I like to put the wiring loom on. It's much easier with it just hanging down. The top plug, that is a pain to get out. Very easy to put back in. When you reinstall this shifter, we connect the 12mm bolt underneath to the gear linkage. Then we put this cover plate on. What you want to do is make sure you can get into 5th and 6th gear easily, because this plate can be moved and it can cause a grinding noise when in 5th and 6th gear if not aligned correctly. Other things we've done, we've fitted the exhaust system back onto the car. Another thing we've done is we've bled the clutch system. This is quite a tricky process. Make sure the reservoir at the top is filled. Crack this bleed nipple with obviously a hose attached. Leave it to gravity drain for about 15 minutes. Tighten it up, and then you want to pump the clutch pedal 5 times, fully release the clutch pedal, and then crack the nipple. Tighten the nipple up again, and repeat that process until you get a firm pedal. It's a lot of trial and error with it. They are notoriously bad to bleed.